Joining us is political commentator Ted Goodman. Ted Goodman, thank you so much for your time and joining us once again. Let's talk about the conflict in the Middle East. President Trump has spoken about the military success in Iran in a Truth Social post today. This was part of the post. He wrote, "We've decimated Iran's military. Their navy is gone, their air force is gone, their anti-aircraft and radar is gone, and perhaps most importantly, their leaders at virtually every level are gone, never to threaten us, our Middle Eastern allies, or the world again." Now, Ted, we've heard from plenty of miserable Democrats almost rooting for America to fail here, almost since the very start of this operation, saying Trump is dragging us into a forever war, this is going to be a failure. And now the director of the US National Counterterrorism Center, Joe Kent, has resigned, saying that he cannot, in good conscience, back the Trump administration's war in Iran and claim that Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation. And this is a line we keep hearing, even though Iran is the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism. Can I get your reaction to Joe Kent's resignation?
Well, very disappointed in Mr. Kent. I worked with him briefly during the 2020 campaign with President Trump. And look, it's one thing to resign if you have disagreements with policy, and that's perfectly okay. And it's probably better that you do leave government. However, for him to take those parting shots, somehow claiming that President Trump is controlled by Israel, and then to make this statement that Iran didn't pose an imminent threat to the United States, that's not his role. It never was his role to say something like that to the public. And so I'm very disappointed with Joe's how he did this, right? It's one thing to leave government if you have disagreements with policy or the administration. It's another thing to take these shots out the door. It's concerning, and it goes against a lot of things that Mr. Kent has been saying in recent years. He himself acknowledged the threat of the Iranian regime. He's spoken time and time again about President Trump's steady hand when it comes to dealing with Mideast issues. And now all of a sudden, he quits, and on the way out, claims that the president is somehow controlled by Israel. Look, however you feel about President Trump, I think most of us would agree that he's not the type of person to allow anyone, let alone a foreign government, control him.
You're absolutely right. I mean, the suggestion that Donald Trump is controlled by a foreign country is just laughable. We mentioned earlier about those Democrats just really rallying against this war from the very, very beginning. There are so many examples, but here's Hakeem Jeffries making the prediction that this war is not going to end well for Americans.
And now he has just gotten us into a potential endless war in the Middle East, of all places, where we know, based on what happened in Afghanistan, based on what happened in Iraq, based on what happened in Libya, it's not going to end well for American interests.
What do you make of the Democrats' messaging throughout this operation? I mean, it's been 2 weeks and they've been labeling it a forever war. They've been blasting the president of the United States. Given all the success, have they already been proven wrong?
That's right. And this idea that automatically this is going to be a forever war is absurd, right? So Hakeem Jeffries and the majority of the Democrats today, their actions and their words on this are disappointing, but really infuriating, right? It should infuriate every American. These people would rather see harm come to American service members if it means they can take shots at President Trump, right? And so for Hakeem Jeffries to come out here and root against America's success just because he doesn't support the current president, or the current president is of the opposing party, is absurd. And it's a dangerous place to be as a country when you have one of the two major political parties rooting against the country's success during ongoing military operations.
We also keep hearing from the leftist media how fractured MAGA is. Well, CNN has been forced to report that nearly 90% of the MAGA base actually supports Trump's action in Iran. Look at this.
Hey, MAGA GOP on the U.S. military action in Iran. Look at this. Nearly 9 in 10, 89% approve of the U.S. military action in Iran. That is the MAGA GOP base. Just 9% disapprove of it. This is tremendously popular among the Republican base. And of course, Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, overseeing the effort. It seems to me that a lot of people are taking that into account, including President Donald Trump, who has been smiling an awful lot at Marco Rubio lately.
Well, there you go, Ted. It turns out that, would you believe it, some of the media have been lying about this fracture in the MAGA base.
Look, let's be clear. There's one leader of the MAGA movement, right? And that's President Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. And this movement is powered by tens of millions of hardworking Americans who love their country, who want to take care of their families. These are proud members of their community. And so anyone else that's out there trying to claim that MAGA is split, or they claim that they somehow speak for MAGA, they're in over their skis, right? And it comes down to egos and people that simply don't have a grasp on the MAGA movement and what President Trump built. President Trump won over millions of Democrats and tens of millions of independents and people that frankly had never voted before. Because he had a message of restoring America's greatness on the global stage, putting America first. It's not about America alone. It's about putting America first and taking care of people here at home. However, that doesn't mean we can just ignore these threats from around the world. And the Iranian regime has posed a threat not just to the United States and to Israel, but really to the entire free world ever since 1979. And you heard repeatedly from basically every president since Reagan on the threat that the Iranian regime poses. And now we have a president who is willing to take action. We've seen no president before him take action in Iran. And if he didn't do it now, we may be faced with a nuclear-armed Iran within a matter of years. And President Trump was not going to allow that to happen under his watch. He's talked repeatedly about the threat that the Iranian regime poses, going back to the 80s. And so people shouldn't be surprised by this. We didn't sign up for an endless war. And what we've seen is quite the opposite. President Trump, under Defense Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, and our military brass have conducted what may be considered, to this point, one of the most successful operations in modern history. We have taken out the entire Iranian Navy. We've incapacitated their military, and we've been taking out their top leadership. And to this point, unfortunately, right, even one casualty is too many. We've lost 7 U.S. service members.
Yeah, and all in the space of just 2.5 weeks. I mean, taking out so many leaders.
13 service members.
Yes. I want to ask you about Cuba. Cuba's electrical grid's in collapse amid an oil blockade, and Donald Trump and Marco Rubio appear to be turning up the pressure on the communist regime. This is what President Trump had to say on Cuba yesterday.
In great weather. They're not in a hurricane zone, which is nice for a change, you know. They won't be asking us for money for hurricanes every week. But I think Cuba's the end. You know, all my life I've been hearing about the United States and Cuba. You know, when will the United States do it? I do believe I'll be having the honor of taking Cuba. That'd be good honor. It's a big honor.
Taking Cuba.
Taking Cuba in some form, yeah. Taking Cuba. I mean, whether I free it, take it, I think I could do anything I want with it. You want to know the truth? They're a very weakened nation right now. They were for a long time. Very violent leaders.
Okay, Ted, can you give us your assessment? Obviously, you've put questions to Donald Trump before. What do you make of what he had to say on Cuba there?
Well, Cuba's leadership ought to take the president at his word, right? We've seen repeatedly, whether it's Venezuela or Iran, that this is a man who says what he means and means what he says. Cuba, of course, just 90 miles off the coast of Florida. Throughout my lifetime, as the president said, throughout his lifetime, has aligned itself with Russia, right? The Soviet Union before that. And it really shouldn't, it really shouldn't be that way. I mean, it's 90 miles off the coast of Florida. And so this president, once again, as he's shown in Venezuela and Iran, appears to be ready for change. And the Cuban leadership ought to take this seriously. It appears that they are, right? It appears that they want to talk with the president, and it appears that negotiations have been ongoing. And once again, this is a man of action, and he'd like to see something done here with the 3 years he has left as president.
I want to talk to you about YouTuber Nick Shirley, the 23-year-old who's been once again out and about exposing and highlighting massive fraud. He, of course, highlighted this in Minnesota in a mega viral video, and he's now released his 40-minute video documenting what he says is around $170 million in alleged taxpayer-funded fraud at California's hospice centers and daycare centers. Let's just take a little look.
Word got out that I was inside of the plaza and all the fraudsters started hopping in their cars, leaving the scene.
Excuse me. Let's see if they can just answer our questions really quick. Hello, can we ask you a quick question? Driving out in a brand new M8. They can't get out that easy. How can I get an M8 as well? Should I open up a hospice?
I have to say, I love his questions. Just how he highlighted the Leering Center. He is doing a brilliant job, I think. Yet Gavin Newsom, governor of California, seems to be pretty scared of Nick Shirley, I would say. He posted this image on social media and it backfired. Nick Shirley responded saying, "You do realize I'm trying to help America eliminate fraud and waste right now. No need to try and make me look like the bad guy for exposing fraud. People are over it. Start working for the people and not against them." I mean, he's making a lot of sense, I would say.
Critically low battery warning. Low battery. Return to home promptly.